And then there was Fantasy Suites. In this episode, I want to do something that I did the last season. I want to talk about attachment styles. I want to talk about the final three men, what their attachment style. I want to talk about Joan's attachment style and my theory for what happened with Pascal, really. Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. Welcome back. Before we get started, I'm going to dispel a couple things, but do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit a like, leave a comment here. There were so many great comments in my last video, and I want to talk about two things that I want to clear up first. Number one, I said Fiji, not Tahiti. I got that wrong. Clarifying that, we are in Tahiti this week, but I made another mistake. In one of my comments, I said something that I was older than Joan. I'm not. Okay, for the record, I'm 58, soon to be 59 years old. I am younger than Joan. But here's what I want to say, because on behalf of Joan and all women of this age, I want to stop comparing us, whether we look better or worse, because something that really bugs me on social media is where people will say you look good for your age, or people get spicy in the comments and say you look older, and I just don't want to have anything to do with that. You know, we can talk about the work that Joan's had done or hasn't had done, and I want to say do whatever you want to do to make you look good. If you want to get plastic surgery, go for it. You want to get hair extensions, go for it. Because by this age, the nice thing is once you're over 50, you're usually doing it for yourself because you know who you are. But I see a lot of cattiness, and I've said this before in my videos, like sometimes younger women, they get afraid of growing old and they want to know, like, did you wear sunscreen or not, because they see some wrinkles and we get nervous about this. I think everyone at this age is just maturing and developing in different ways, but there is beauty in so much of that. And I don't want to focus as much on the physicality, because for me, I'm looking at the relational aspects. I'm really looking at how two people are coming together. Are they a fit in terms of their personality? Which brings me to this week's episode. Okay, so I've cleared up a couple things on that. This week, let's face it, it's a big ad for Tahitian Airlines and for the island of Tahiti, which I love though, because having said that, it wasn't on my bucket list before, but now I'm thinking to my husband, we got to get to Tahiti. The water and the beauty is really fantastic. And it's only a 12-hour flight from LA to Tahiti. So I thought, this is interesting. I will have to say, did we really put Joan on a flight with nobody else? Like, let's hope that, yeah, they filmed that and then other people boarded that plane, because I thought, wow, that would be such a waste. Wasn't Nancy on the plane with her? But we start the episode and we can see Joan is perking up, right? It's beautiful out. The weather is warm. Again, the water is so blue. And this is just what Joan needs. She needs a friend. She needs someone that she's known before. And Nancy is the perfect person. Now, get you up to speed. If you don't remember Nancy was on The Golden Bachelor. And it was in the episode when she put on a wedding dress that she really broke down. She is also a widow and talked about the last time that she was in a wedding dress was her own wedding, and she got really choked up. But I think these two are so lovely. That greeting just seemed so sincere. Now, I think it's also really telling when the girls are having a chat. Of course, she's filling her in about the last three guys, right? Guy, it sounds like, she's talking about how handsome he is, but that he's a little bit more into her. She's getting this right. She's into Pascal, but he's got a lot of walls up. And Chock, of course, is he too good to be true? So all of that kind of fits. But I also want to talk a little bit more about grief, because Nancy was beautiful to bring this up. And I think something else that's just so lovely, it's like Nancy is giving her permission to think about herself. Why we fell in love with Joan and why I do think she makes for a good Golden Bachelorette is that episode when she was leaving, and she left, remember, because her daughter had postpartum depression. And she said, it's not uncommon that you feel invisible. And Nancy is also saying to Joan, You put everybody first, and she could relate to that, like your kids, but now is your time. And I get the feeling, because I've talked about this in previous episodes. My last episode is Joan ready or not? She's talking about a lot of guilt. And I think it's even like guilt for just taking up space, for thinking that like I deserve love. Yes, there could be some guilt around her late husband and all of that. But I think what's really happening for Joan, and she's using the word guilt, but now that I think of it more, I think it's also fear. And here's the thing, when you have gone through love and loss, and my husband and I talked a lot about this because he lost his wife, there's fear. Now you know the pain of losing a significant other after 32 years. The idea is, if I love again and I lose you, I just don't know if I'm up for that. So we can all question her readiness, but as I think about it, there's just got to be fear. Here's the other thing I want to say in psychology. What you don't recognize is that the brain does not know time. Think about it. When your brain was young, or when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, falling in love is fear. Fear of getting hurt, fear of rejection, fear of things going well, fear of things not going well. And so falling in love is just the big question mark, where you feel kind of out of control. You don't know where this is going. And so I think Joan is grappling with that. But she's calling it guilt, but I think it's fear. And we call it falling in love because that's the feeling, right? Like the bottom has come out from under. But because the brain doesn't know how old you are, that feeling can make us feel young, but it can also bring up all those feelings and all those fears. So now what's also very telling to me is when she says to Nancy, I have to go on a date. Okay, now we're going to the first date with Guy. I have to go on a date. And it didn't sound like, yay, I get to go on a date. And sure enough, it was with Guy. I'm feeling for Guy. He is so into Joan. He's so excited. But now there was a little glimmer of hope in this episode for me, because I finally saw a little bit more flirting. There was finally some kissing, and it didn't look like just friendship kissing, like when they were in the water and they're on the boat. Joan is finally relaxing into Guy. And I just feel like, I mean, he's so excited. He's, in his salmon shirt. He greets her. And Guy is just so head over heels, right? He's talking about the excitement of falling in love, that the revelation is that he can feel that way again. But then he assumes that Joan is there with him. And again, we can see it because we're not in it, that Joan is sharing more with the other man. But Guy thinks that he's speaking specific to her when really she's just vaguely talking about falling in love. And so he hears what he wants to hear, right? You have some cognitive bias. You're hearing what you want to hear. So he's very complimentary. They both look wonderful together. And we see them diving in, right? That becomes always the metaphor for, diving into deeper waters, though the water's very shallow here. We've got, the sharks and the manta rays, and it looks really beautiful. But I'm still holding my breath for Guy, because I just think this is just friend zone, right? She, in the dinner portion though, I will have to say, and this is where we're going to need to talk about middle-aged sex people. Yes, we are, because I am middle-aged. I've set that up from the beginning. I want to talk about some things that I think Joan is doing really well. Whether you don't think she's the best bachelorette or not, I love the way Joan is handling these conversations. We knew this was coming. She said this in interviews, that there was no bed in the fantasy suite. But the way that she handles this is really good communication. She says to Guy, because he's the first one, at least that we see, that she's not going to be having intimacy with anyone, and just to let him know, because she's saving that for her final person. Well, here's the other thing. Again, side note, I hate to burst any bubbles if you're not there, if you're not 58 or older, but sometimes sex can be a little painful. Okay, you may not know that. You don't want to hear that. Blah, blah, blah. You're in your 30s and 40s. But here's the thing, for women over 50 or anyone who's gone through menopause, that can be the case. And so Joan may not want to have sex with these guys for multiple reasons. But she's also been with the same partner for 32 years. And this is why, put a pin in it, it is so hard for Joan to manage multiple relationships. She's not saying, I'm in love with multiple people the way some people have made mistakes before. She's clearly not Zach from previous seasons saying, no Seggs. She's saying, I want this to be special. And all the men are getting that message. So she's not changing the message based upon how she feels with any one person. She's saying, these are my values. These are my morals. I'm used to being with one person. I'm going to save that for the final person. And you could just see the men. They're relieved, right? Guy is relieved. Because here's the other thing about midlife sex. It's not that great for the men either. There can be performance issues. And any man who's in his 50s, 60s, they can tell you this is the case. So they're relieved. It is a place that you can talk without the cameras. There's no changing that. But what I love, we're not going to see those ridiculous, intimate mornings with the breakfast. Because what I really think happened is they were on the couch, they talked, maybe till midnight, maybe till, who knows, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they went to their respective rooms. That's what I think happened. We don't know that for sure. But when she said no beds, it doesn't mean they were sleeping on the couch. I think there was an ending to that she had the conversation she needed to have, and that was the end of that. Now, Guy, not only is he relieved, he says to Joan, is there anything you can't do well? Because she handled that well. Yes, she handled the conversation well. She told all of them ahead of time, and she stuck to it. And that's what I appreciate. I do think the younger people can take note here because this is where we see it gets into lots of questions, lots of problems. If you knew you were going to get engaged to me, did you really have sex with them or not? And some people we know, previous leads have said sometimes nothing happens. But for the sake of going over that, I thought these are 3, 4 mature people all handling these situations really well. And I liked it. It might be more boring. I'm okay with that. Okay. So that was Guy's date. Went well. But again, he's in the friend zone. I don't know what it's going to take. Now let's get to Chock. He has a conversation with Jesse. You're not in Kansas anymore. I get that. The whole Wizard of Oz. Cute. He does say to Jesse, either I'm getting engaged or I'm going to be heartbroken. Here's what I think about Chock and his attachment style. Excuse me. Let me go back to Guy for a minute. Guy's attachment style. I think Guy, we don't have enough information, but I think Guy could be a securely attached guy. He's not coming on too strong. He's sharing with Joan how he feels. He's falling in love with her, but he's not an avoidant type. I don't hear him pushing her off, and I don't hear him gushing too much. I think there's a nice pacing. So I'm just going to say Guy, from what I know, could be a securely attached person, which is good, what you want. Chock, on the other hand, people in the comments are saying he's aggressive, he's controlling. I think what he is he's a bit anxious. What does that mean? Well, what I say, if you've watched any of my previous videos on attachment theory, we're all like tea. You don't know who someone is until you put them in hot water. And this is where the hot water is bubbling. Once we get to hometowns and now fantasy suites, when the stakes are really getting high to get hurt or to be the final person, we start to see people unravel a little bit. So we start to see who they really are. And I think Chock has been a bit anxious from the beginning. He's been the one who's been talking about the competition more than anyone. People are saying he's a little bit like Devin. He's love bombing Joan. I think he just needs validation. Okay, so I don't really want to call it love bombing because I don't like the tone of that. I think he could have. He's an older person. He was engaged to his last person for 7 years. Someplace I read 9. Maybe he regrets that he didn't get married to her. And now he says, oh crap, life is short. I'm not going to let that happen again. I want to seal the deal. What we do see is Chock, of all the men, he's been a little bit more aggressive. It's because he feels things deeply, and that could be explained by an anxious attachment style. Joan could have an anxious attachment style herself. She said in multiple episodes, if you're really listening, even before her husband passed, she felt anxious and alone in the world. And then she loses him and she's in hot water. And all of that comes to the surface. And that's what drives her to want the next relationship, but also presents the conflict. Am I in? Am I out? Because I want it. I don't want to be alone. I don't like feeling lonely. But now I'm really nervous that you might reject me too. Now, having said that, Chock and Joan, if they're both a little bit anxious, could be a good pairing. They could be very similar. Whether this reminds her of her husband or not, I think that the two of them could be lovely. I definitely see the most chemistry. It, the way that when they greet each other, there's always that little whisper. There's something like personal going on here, but then they're like, uh-oh, the cameras are here. I love these two together. So I don't want to talk negative about Chock. Even his daughter got online, got on TikTok and said, "Hey, listen, I was the one who put my dad on the show." I think these two could be wonderful together. We're going to see how that all plays out, but their date is fun. They go-karting. Joan says, go faster, like a schoolgirl. Again, her brain is young. He can't sleep. He's so excited. They have a picnic together. He says so many lovely things about her. And it's been many days since he's seen her. So he is contemplating all of this. But she is just saying, hey, I need to get here with you. And there's nothing negative. So at some point they fake us out a little bit, like Chock was the one who was kind of hesitant. There's no way. He has been all in from the beginning, and that has got to make Joan feel good. But because he's talking about the competition, this is what clues me into more of an anxious attachment style, because you are now aware that you're not the only one. Okay, so I love these two together. I love their connection. I do feel like it's very genuine. And as I said, when you're used to only being with one person, it's just so hard to manage all these other people that I can imagine how hard it is for Joan. So they have a wonderful time. We do see a little bit of the fantasy suite because it's the two of them that are on the sofa. We do see more passion. We see more kissing. And then Chock, so polite, so respectful, says, okay, we're going to say goodnight now. And they close the door and they say goodbye. And the next day, remember, doesn't have to be an overnight, Chock is beaming that he got, it was everything and more. I'm guessing Joan is saying, Chock, don't worry. You're my guy. They're talking about more details. How are they going to make this work? And that's what you really want, right? You don't need the heavy makeout. You need to get the details of let's talk next steps, because this is going to be a whirlwind. Whew. Okay, let's get to Pascal. Pascal and everything that he's been through, his family history, remember his origins of not having any money, a tough start, the shoe that his father pretty much put, like, what did he put, some cardboard or something in it to patch it up. This is a young man who may not have had very much financially, but when he refers to himself as damaged goods, I'm somehow thinking that this is leaning more towards avoidant attachment style. That Pascal can seem flamboyant, he can seem eccentric to some, but he's not great with emotions. And that's why I'm feeling like this is some attachment style issues, that he might have grown up in a family where they were not incredibly expressive. So now Pascal is on the date with Joan, and Joan at one point, I got the feeling, thought that Pascal was going to be top two, because she did say somewhere that he's going to meet my family. And I'm like, oof, shoot, this is for what's to come. So Pascal on the date, though, let's face it, compared to the other dates, not so fun. The other guys, Chock and her get to go karting, which looks fun. Guy gets to go diving, and he is thrown into this traditional marriage Polynesian ceremony. Well, here's the thing. this is where I get a little tired of the narrative that the show puts people into this. And it's always the person who is the most skeptical that gets put into this situation because they want to get at deeper feelings. So they're not going to put him on the fun date. He's already had Vegas, right? He's already had fun. But he's thinking on Pascal's term, I just want to continue to have fun, get to know her, but now I'm in this ceremony and we can see him freaking out. I will have to say, the most fun though is when they're eating the bread and they're talking about the cock. Okay, the rooster, the chicken, and he's making the cockadoodle doo sounds and he's trying to talk French. And I just found this really endearing. It was funny. Joan is laughing. It's like he doesn't know what he's saying. And I just felt like this was really kind of sweet. Like there's just good energy between these two. He's a good sport. He's going along with it, but you can just see if you look at his face and his eye contact, he is just dying inside. Like, I'm not ready to release anything. I'm here to help Joan, but what am I releasing? Okay. So now we get to the evening portion of the date. But before I get to that, here's what's important. He says to Jesse, I was in love just recently. We broke it off twice and intimating that he's not quite ready. And here's what I'm thinking happened. Drop it in the comments. I could be completely off base. I think what really happened to Pascal, they went home to Chicago, went to hometowns. Either he got back in touch with his ex, or he was at least reminded of his ex and how it felt to really be in love. Not an uncommon thing. He thought that he was going along, that this was fun, that this was playful. He met so many great guys on the show. Mark becomes his best friend. He gets, tips on how to do your laundry, all fun and good. But now this got serious. Meeting his family. But I'm wondering if this ex didn't pop up. But here's something that I don't know if you caught. So he says in this ceremony, well, Joan will never get over her first love, John, like I won't get over my ex. But they're very different, right? Joan's ex, her first husband, is not coming back. The ex might. They're still alive. So I felt weird, like, are we comparing grief of death to grief of an ex? And that's where I thought, I wonder if this person didn't just come back into the picture. So I'm going to get to some other things because he's been writing, he's been interviewed on some different articles, but that is what I thought. So now it gets to him. He's saying, oh crap, things are getting serious. I don't want to hurt Joan, but we've got to talk about it. Now, I do also think that Pascal handled himself well. Let's chalk it up to maturity. At this point, at this age, he's 69. You should think that he should be able to bring these things up correctly. So Pascal, as soon as he knows this, he gets on the date. And I thought, he's also a little bit underdressed because usually Pascal really dresses. And I'm like, he's wearing black. She's wearing black. This is not good. So they get to the evening portion and Pascal says, I really have to go deeper. And he does acknowledge that he freaked out. He felt trapped, I'm guessing, with this ceremony. There was no place to run. He thought it was going to be more playful and it brought up all these feelings. I got the feeling he didn't really want to say to Joan that I'm not in love with you, I've been in love, but maybe there was encouragement by the producers to say more. I don't know, because he's trying very hard to handle this well. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Joan didn't hear it, thought maybe with more time, and he has to then say, no, I'm just not feeling it with you. Because then that's not a matter of keeping somebody around, right? So it's very mature. Joan is saying all the right things. I get it. You're not feeling it. There's nothing more to be said. I also get Joan's feelings, and I would totally be the same. I'm done. There's nothing more to say. I want to get out of here. You want to go and be by yourself in your bedroom crying. you don't know this person that well to really sob or cry with them, and he feels bad. This is where I think it's a breakup done well, because Pascal does say, I'm sorry for hurting you. So many other seasons we don't get that from the guy. They kind of push back, and I think this is an avoidant who's gotten good at relationships, so he can say that. And we also see a little bit of the diva come out in Pascal. So now they ask, the producers, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. And I could see with Joan's reaction that she's not okay. So he pushes the camera away, leave us alone. Obviously, the film crew is supposed to film everything. But what I loved is these two who have had love and loss turn to each other and say, I'm here for you. I'm a phone call away. We don't see that in other episodes. This is a beautiful moment. Joan is struggling. I want to be alone. I get it. You're not there. But all of a sudden, right, your future, your possible future with this person just is gone. And so it's shock. It's dismay. It's like, what the heck kind of happened there? How did I read that so wrong? So for me, I was reading shock, a little bit embarrassment. And let's face it, Pascal is a fun person. I don't know if he has the kind of depth, and I just got the feeling because he said there wasn't any spark that maybe on energies, he's just looking for someone a little bit different. I don't want Joan to take this personally. It's kind of like Joan didn't feel it with Mark the way that Pascal doesn't feel it with Joan. And that is just what it is. But when it comes to breakups, this was a breakup done well. Two mature people saying, I love you. It doesn't mean I'm in love with you. I love you as a friend, and I'm so, so sorry that I hurt you. So good job. I will hold Pascal to this, though. If he knew sooner that Joan wasn't it, I wished he would have done it earlier. And I know people will say in hindsight, well, I didn't know. I was hoping I'd get there. It all could be true. And they could just not be a personality fit. So I get that. Now, Pascal in this article in Glamour also said that, because people were coming down on him, is he doing it for the clout, to get advertisement for his salon? And he said, come on, people. And I believe him. He has enough clients. He has enough people working for him. He has enough money that he didn't do it for that. And I really have to agree. These people are not after the Instagram followers. Sure, they might get some notoriety that comes from that. But Pascal in this article said, if the franchise wants to continue, you have to think about people locally. And this is what I've been saying the whole time. Do it like Love is Blind. And of course, now if you're in Chicago and there are 13 million people, then Pascal, you may have more people to choose from. But if you're in Wichita, Kansas, you may not have as many options. And he also said that he felt some bit of aggression. I don't know if he said aggression, some bit of comparison. And he said this, that I'm on the show and I see these other men who are all successful, and Chock came on so strong with Joan that could have put the doubt for him and made it harder for him to take the next steps. So I appreciate these articles that let's not gatekeep any of that. But I do think it's going to be really hard for anyone to move and find people that are more local. I've been saying this from the beginning. This is even more so for the Golden Bachelor, Bachelorette. It's going to be harder. You're not early in your life and you're nowhere and you're sleeping on somebody's sofa and you're going to be moving to LA, or you've got an established life, and so therefore all the more important to find somebody who's a geographical fit. Let's talk next week, because I love a good men tell all, and let's face it, these are bros tell all. There's a lot of bromance that happened in these episodes, as I said earlier. Remember, because men don't oftentimes talk about grief, they don't know, and so this is what I cannot wait to see. What I don't want to see is Joan heartbroken. She's going to be sad that Pascal left, but don't take it personally, Joan. It's like Mark. He can't take it personally either. And I hate for that person to start questioning their lovability because one person doesn't feel it for them. Focus on who is there. Focus on the love that is easier. And I really want Joan to have a happy ending. I'm invested at this point. I hope you are too. Super excited. My video next week, just for you to know, is going to be a little late because I'm going to be out of town when it airs. So look for it a little bit later. But I'm truly just loving this season. And I want there to be good ratings too, because it won't continue if they don't. Leave me a comment, leave me a like. Let me know what you're thinking. What do you think of my theory that Pascal maybe is still with this ex? That guy is just being friend zoned. How do you think he's going to be? Who do you think will be the next Golden Bachelor if there is one? I think Guy could make an interesting Golden Bachelor. We're going to see more from the Men Tell All. But until then, that is a wrap.